stage for your remarks.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Marianne. What a pleasure to be here. And thank all of you for what you're doing to help enable this new resource that really we're going to depend on to keep our electric system vital and functioning reliably, and even more reliably. I think the new resource of load flexibility is going to help us in innumerable ways that all of you are aware of. So I really want to just emphasize that point. I did want to just start with a couple of acknowledgments. First to you, Marianne. I mean, you could retreat into management in your new position, but it just speaks volumes of your commitment and the importance of this issue, and just the long-term relationship that the Energy Commission has with LBL about with respect to load flexibility, starting even before the open ADR, but so multiple decades now. And just thanks for your leadership throughout the years. We wouldn't be where we are without your leadership. So let's. And then second, I just wanted to acknowledge the gentleman up there on the third picture from the top there, Ashok Gadkil, who just recently received the National Medal of Technology and Innovation from President Biden. And I don't know if any of you were able to watch that online, but it was just an incredibly moving moment, I think, for all of us that know him as a colleague and a friend, and speaks, I think, volumes about the lab itself and its ability to, its willingness to support entrepreneurial endeavors that have a human benefit, that really have a global impact. And Ashok, was able, while being a staff sci and doing all the work in the energy efficiency realm at the lab over in Building 90, assembling a really amazing sort of traditional portfolio of projects, was able to, with the support from the lab and foundations, go do, water and energy work in developing countries that really, I think, is his true passion, more so than anything else, and really have a big impact and move the needle on water quality in particular around the world. And so the fact that that can get supported at the lab and recognized by the president is just a phenomenal fact. And I think it just shows that our values are in the right place. So anyway, want to just really hold him up. So on to load flexibility. I had a career before coming back to the lab throughout the 1990s, lived in South America. Actually initially went down there to work on load management in the industrial sector in Bolivia. And back then, the analog era, it was pick up the phone, call somebody, have them drop load, and it was sort of manual demand response basically at that time. But the value was very clear, and the value remains clear. And we're lucky to now be fully in the digital age with lots of low-cost communications and controls technologies that, as Marianne described, I won't get into that level of detail, but that we need to learn how to apply them optimally. But we have incredible tools in our toolbox to make it happen. And load factors are low load factors are our enemy here as we electrify. And so, we need to do that valley filling and that peak shaving on a day in, day out basis, as well as those top 100 hours sort of in a traditional demand response kind of mode. But day in, day out load shaping is what's going to help us stage investments in the utility grid in an optimal way so that customers don't get price shocked, that rates can be managed, but that we still have, take advantage of all the room we've got, all the headroom we've got in the distribution grid, and can optimally invest where the distribution system really needs that investment. So load flexibility is a key tool to help us do that. And that really was the motivation behind the load flex, the load shift work, and the goal that we've now set, 7,000 megawatts. And so just wanted to set that context a little bit. So I'm going to run through just a few slides here. Next slide, please. Load flex is going to help us in three ways. Reliability really is job one, right? The lights go off, all bets are kind of off, right? Governors lose their jobs over that. It has happened. And so that just, highlights the fact that reliability, our electric system has to work in a modern economy and support all the things we need electricity to do. But as I said, it also helps with cost management. So, staging investments and really optimizing the use of the system we have at all levels, from, wholesale bulk markets all the way down to the local distribution grid. And then decarbonization. In the near term, we can, luckily, the energy we have more of in the middle of the day is very low cost and very clean. And so that's a resource we need to use. And LoadFlex can help us use more energy when it's available and clean and cheap. So that's fortuitous. In the long term, the grid is going to be 100% clean, right? By 2045, it will be carbon free. And so decarbonization is sort of in the near term is where LoadFlex is going to help mostly decarbonize, but over the long term, it's going to help us optimally run the grid when it is 100% carbon free. Next slide. To Mary Ann's point about excess, about the belly of the duck here, as we get more and more, as we furiously build out more and more solar and wind, and got some geothermal plants that have been proposed. We've got some large scale energy storage as well, but the renewable supply is, in the middle of the day, it's being curtailed increasingly. And so we have a lot of energy that we can find a home for. At the bulk power level, the CAISO, the independent system operator, runs the energy imbalance market. So that's a place for some of this excess renewables. But really, our system would be sort of better off to utilize it locally within the balancing authority and use load flexibility to take advantage of that essentially free energy. Next slide. So this there are sort of 6 categories of things that I'm going to just touch on very, very briefly. But it really is just to show that our toolbox is getting pretty full with tools to help with load flexibility. And so the 2 agencies that are mostly involved in the demand side, getting more load flexibility are the Energy Commission and the Public Utilities Commission. I think there is an incredibly, I think Mary Ann touched on this, there's a real ecosystem of load flex that I think sort of generates a virtuous cycle. The reason we were able to do some of these things, I'll talk about the flexible demand appliance standards a bit, the load shift goal, how we're able to do that as a state agency and adopt regulations and rules and programs, that is enabled by the research that happens here at LBL, by the industrial ecosystem, people out there trying things and figuring out what works. Then we're able to say, hey, we have confidence that this is something that we can really promote widely or even require. And that's what we do as a state agency is, we're a standards making body and a regulatory body. The PUC obviously makes rates. And so the more and better each entity does their jobs and takes advantage of these tools, the more they're going to multiply and the more they're going to expand to be a true solution for the grid in our decarbonization journey. So really just it does take a village, and we're one neighborhood maybe in that village. I'm going to just talk about more or less these more or less in order. So next slide. So I'm not going to get into any sort of detail like Mary Ann did. So this is maybe self-evident, but we are really we're at the early stages really of massive adoption of load flexibility. And so we're moving with the load management standards and MIDAS, the Market Informed Demand Automation Server, having rates online, accessible through API, having flexible appliances, able to receive, able to interface with MIDAS and third parties that are helping mobilize that flexible demand at the appliance level. As those appliances are required really through the standards to have native load flexibility, they can take advantage of rates in an automated way. And as those permeate the economy, that resource grows. So we're now headed down that path. In the future, many of the technologies you all are working on will be truly transactive, so bidirectional and able to respond in a much more granular and immediate way. Next slide. So this is sort of the load management standards the components of the load management standards. The rate database is a core piece of that. Definitely the RIN, the rate lookup tool, is a fairly complex endeavor actually, but we're making progress on that so that it is easy to identify for any given customer what their rate is and then automate access to that rate through Midas. Hourly rates are coming in the future. The investor-owned utilities and the rest of the utilities in the state will be increasingly doing time-dependent rates with more options for more customers. And so that'll, over the coming 3 or so years, that'll be really gaining momentum. And lots of customer education is necessary. I think as the behavioral aspects of this are not to be dismissed. They're significant. Next slide. So we really need customers. We need this to work for customers. So that's the bottom line here. There's cyber issues. There's just informational issues. We really need to sort of clear up any doubt that customers have so that they can feel comfortable adopting these technologies. Efficient and flexible is the future. Next slide. So I'm really excited about the adoption week before last, I guess, of the flexible demand appliance standards. The first one, which was for pool controls, that'll be going into effect in 2025. So as of middle of the year 2025, when you replace your pool controls, when you build a new pool, the controls that are at that pool will have native load flexibility. And they will have connectivity, and they will be able to respond to automated DR programs or automated load flex programs. And so that was a multi-year effort to really vet all of the issues, have a lot of interaction, trying to create the template that we'll use not only for that category of pool controls, but also water heaters, behind the meter batteries, EV chargers coming down the road. So you're going to be seeing more device categories coming through, things that lend themselves to load flex. So then those will be able to plug in to Midas and automate, and away we go. Next slide. In the building code, we also support load flexibility. So there's a compliance credit for new construction. You get a little energy, you get a little room in your energy budget when you build a new building if you put in a water heater, say, or behind the meter battery that has load flexible functions. Next slide. And so another area here of the 6 kind of general areas we're working in is the load shift goal that Marianne mentioned. She gave the summary of this, but there's sort of the subcategories. But 3,000 in load modifying, load flexibility, load shift. So the 4,000 there is sort of a bit more the traditional 100-hour, focusing on the 100 hours, dropping load, moving load around out of those peak hours, peak summer day. The 3,000 is really, I think, where the day in, day out load shift is going to happen. It's permanent load shifting. So it's that sort of system optimization that I was talking about before. So both of these are really important, and understanding how they interact is critical to really making it all work. So that's part of what we're helping fund with the Flex Hub. Next slide. So also wanted to acknowledge the Public Utilities Commission. They are doing a lot in the CalFuse rulemaking and some other rate making rulemakings that is moving the tariff regime to more time dependence. And so really acknowledging how important and really developing solutions through the rate making process to send the right signals to the customer so that they have some incentive to act in a way that comports with the grid needs. Next slide. So I did want to just sort of put all this together. There's a lot going on across both agencies, and so the timelines are interlaced in ways that I think matter. The load management standards and the rate making are really intimately connected. So there's a lot of work. We have an incredible team of staff and a bunch of stakeholders who are very active, working very closely with the utilities. So I just want to acknowledge all the work that's going on at both the investor-owned utilities and the POUs. It's definitely a team effort to put all this in place. But we're the first. I mean, it's incredible. Like I get to be the face of all the good stuff that the commission does. Occasionally I take some arrows, but generally it's a good thing. And people are so excited globally about what we're doing with LoadFlex. I mean, the word is out, and it just, the light bulb goes on, and people are like, of course we're doing that. That makes sense. And then of course California is leading that, and we really want to learn from what California is doing. And so I think this is an area of true leadership in California that we're all doing together. So it's very exciting in that way. Next slide. I think this might be my last substantive slide. But the CalFlex Up is really the, a core set of activities and projects for the state to help everyone learn how to do this and to develop the tools that are really going to make it work. We have the rates, but we really have that. We need, even if the rates are perfect, we have to make sure that we've got the connectivity that, it's not lost in translation from the sort of rate making process all the way down to the individual device behind the meter, right? So that there are a lot of sort of nodes in that chain of communications where things can go awry. And so making sure that it all makes sense and fits together and is sort of self-healing is really important. And the lab is just such a global sort of center of that knowledge generation that it's key to making this all work. So I'm just really excited about the partnership, long-term partnership that the state and the Energy Commission have with Berkeley Lab on this. And it's just incredible that we have, I mean, we're fortunate. I guess it's, maybe it's self-evident, but we're fortunate to be in California where we have a large economy. We've got a populace that votes for, really assertive environmental prioritization. We have, a full-time legislature that really does engage on these issues and tells us to do things at the agencies that are important to do. And so I think, and a large economy that can support it, a long history of energy efficiency and energy consulting, starting with, Art Rosenfeld and the original crew of folks who got energy efficiency kind of on the map. And Berkeley Lab has always just been the center of those conversations. And so a lot of smart people in this state helping us do the right thing. And that's a pretty amazing place to be. And I feel very fortunate to be part of the community and just really being able to do my part to help push it forward. So next slide. Hopefully I was right, but that's my last slide. Yes. Okay, good. Great. Well, thank you, everybody.
Great, thanks, Marianne. Okay, so the first question from the remote attendees is, what's the projected timeline for setting additional flexible demand appliance standards following the new standards for pool controls?
Go. Sorry about that. So we're going to be putting out, hundreds of thousands of heat pumps are going to be installed over the coming few years, and it's really an opportunity to transform that market. Not only to get heat pump water heaters installed, but have them have load flexibility capabilities. And so the more we can make that happen in the near term, I think the more comprehensive the penetration of load flex will be at the end uses, and starting that ball rolling is really important. So to answer the question, water heaters is next up for the load flex standards, the flexible demand appliance standards. We don't have an exact timeline, but definitely, within a year from now, we should be, I'm hoping sort of middle of next year, we have a rulemaking in full swing to help put those in place. That's an important one because we have these big subsidy programs coming down the pike.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question is, considering hydrogen's capability to work as a long duration energy storage medium and thus integrate into microgrids, what's the expected role of hydrogen in CalFlex Hub's efforts in the coming years?
It's a good question. So hydrogen is at a very earlier stage than our electricity and electrification goals. So I don't think over the next couple of years, hydrogen will be one of the things that we look at in CalFlex Hub, but we'll look forward to that emerging R&D and the market engagement activities as that Arches was launched. It's the largest award ever from the federal government to California, over $1 billion to launch the hydrogen economy, but it's really not quite ready to integrate with our work here.
And yeah, Arches is a really big deal, so not so relevant to this conversation today, but $1.2 billion from the federal government, one of the two largest awards that were made across the country for hydrogen hubs. It's a big bet on green hydrogen, which is the focus of California's proposal. So excited about that effort.
Okay, that is the end of our remote attendee questions.
Go ahead. Oh, we got a mic coming. Oh, right in the middle.
Yeah, I'm Mark Roost with Sustainable Energy Inc., and we're developing solar thin film and batteries and replacements for neodymium and wind turbines. And on the battery thing, the IRA has this $45 per kilowatt hour allowance for batteries that are made in the US and using North American supply chain. We're going to fit that, and we're figuring that we can sell batteries wholesale for $60 a kilowatt hour out of a pilot plant and $48 a kilowatt hour out of a full production plant, which means $3 per kilowatt hour net, which means that's how long duration do you want, or how long durations for it all, that's all covered by that. So when that goes into mass production and a ceramic floor tile factory can make 60 million square feet of tiles per year, and we're looking at 2,000 watt hours per kilogram, that kind of thing. That's going to have an impact on the ability to store energy on site inexpensively, and it's going to have a massive impact on transportation. And so could you be looking at that, and could you also possibly fund us?
So let me make a quick comment, and then I'll let Andrew. One thing I didn't say is we believe that flexible load in many cases will be more cost effective than installing a battery. And the reason is, if you think about the embodied energy in a battery, the life cycle costs, the circular economy challenges, we want flexible load to do as much as it can in that load shifting. Storage is an important piece of the puzzle, and integrating storage, whether it's thermal storage, which we have several projects today talking about thermal storage, and battery storage. But flexible pumps and heat pumps and mass of the building are things we want, but we appreciate the comment, and it's really exciting to see the innovation in the energy storage technology.
I forgot to mention that this is a saline battery with mineral ceramics, ground up mineral ceramics as the input. You don't have the embodied energy.
I do want to make sure that other people have a chance for their questions, but so so thanks for that really important point. And I think so any kind of storage is, can be used for flexible demand. So, electrical storage, battery storage is one way to do that. But I think the beauty of having sort of economic signals through rates is that can be, the rates can sort of provide the incentive, and then however the customer or the technology, can respond to that, it'll sort of create a playing field. So, competition will be a good thing, I think, in figuring out what kinds of flexible load, what kinds of flex really are the ones that gain traction. But behind the meter batteries, we are looking at how to standardize, the load flex participation of that technology. So it's not only about demand management, it's also about storage and dispatch.
So we're only going to be able to take one more. Those of you who have your hands up that aren't holding a mic, we'll have to talk with you in the lobby. Tristan, go ahead and add. But let me just say, we want abundant material batteries, not just, critical material batteries. So I appreciate the comment that you made. But go ahead.
Hi, Tristan DeFrandeville, Skycentrics. You mentioned hundreds of thousands of water heaters. Water heaters are super exciting because you can shift them without too much impact on comfort, ideally. The biggest water heater project to date is, I think, with Pacific Gas and Electric, 6,000 water heaters over the next 2 or 3 years. Never heard of hundreds of thousands before. How is that magically going to finally happen? Because we need it to happen.
Great point. We're going to actually be directly subsidizing in the many tens of thousands, right? With the federal IRA dollars and the state equitable building decarbonization dollars. So probably not getting up to 100,000 with just those programs, but Tech Clean California is a program that's now currently being funded with ratepayer funds in the investor-owned utility territory. So that's another, appreciable numbers of thousands. But we a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, we had not quite a month ago, October 10th and 11th, we had at the Resources Agency headquarters a building electrification summit. And the sort of centerpiece of that summit was an agreement between the state of California and the 10 largest heat pump manufacturers, or 10 of the largest heat pump manufacturers that encompass well over half of global heat pump production. And we're talking Daikin, Fujitsu, Trane, Carrier, Mitsubishi. I'm going to leave somebody out, so I apologize. But and those companies got together with the state and committed to help the state reach its 6 million heat pump goal by 2030. So that's not all water heaters; that's also HVAC. So and we're not committing to a particular split there, but heat pumps are coming really quickly, and the manufacturers are really doing a lot of innovative design. They're 120 volt. Drop-in replacements, all different form factors and sizes for different applications, heat pumps to replace boilers in multifamily. There's a really a lot of innovation going on, and what historically has not maybe been that focused on what we would think is technology innovation, and it's coming, and it's really going to come fast. So I think we're in the same way that we've seen this incredible transformation in transportation. The governor adopted a huge, goal for, 2035, all light duty will be zero emission, and that's mostly electric. And so just yesterday, we got the numbers for the last, I think, quarter. 27.5% of all new light duty vehicle sales in California are now electric. So that's big numbers. And so we're going to see something similar in the heat pump, both HVAC and water heating realms as we go forward. And just one final point. So just on a personal note, I signed when I built a passive house a few years ago, and has a programmable thermostat in it. I won't name the brand, but I connected it with one of the third-party aggregators for residential HVAC load flexibility. Also won't name that one, but so I was with the CEO of that company not long ago, and I said, gosh, I signed up, but I'm not really sure anything's happening. Like, I'm not sure it doesn't seem to be like doing much. And so he went back to the office, looked up my account and said, oh yeah, we're dispatching your HVAC, right? So I didn't even, it was so much behind the scenes that a few degrees here and there, they were leveraging my thermostat to get some load flex, and I didn't even know it, right? It is that behind the scenes because I signed up, 3-4 years ago, and ever since then I've been contributing to Peak Flex. And so that's the consumer experience we actually want, right? Get demand but not affect comfort. And so I think there's so much going on. The world 5 years from now is going to look very different from the one today. There's going to be really a permeation of these approaches to the benefit of the grid and Californians.
Thank you.